we go. All right, well, thanks for joining. We've got Jamie Lynn joining us, and really quickly we'll have Anasuya joining us. And this is Amplify Voices. This is an event that is taking place physically in Scottsdale, Arizona on Saturday, March 27th. It will also be broadcasted live streaming, and we're going to put in the chat, and I'll get it out on behind us as well for the link to purchase tickets, whether you want to go in person if you're in the Phoenix area, or if you want to attend live streaming. And Jamie Lynn, I just want to thank you so much for coming on. And I was just hoping if you could just talk to us a little bit about, just share who you are and what your interest is in this, and how you came to know Deb Shapiro, who is spearheading this event.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Jamie Lynn, and I am the founder and CEO of Arise Empowered LLC, which empowers people one person at a time. And I know Deb Shapiro because I was in her pilot program of DevX, and it was an amazing event. I really got to understand that I absolutely love public speaking, and I can't wait to get back on another stage. And where I come from with all of this is that as being a survivor, now thriver, of 8 years of sexual abuse, I stand for those who are simply surviving and want to thrive. So those are the people who I reach out and empower.
Thank you so much. So this topic specifically hits close to home for you. And I also want to thank some of our attendees. And if at any point you would like to provide input, please just unmute yourself or raise your hand and let me know. And I would love to call upon you and make this more of a conversation. Would be a great thing to do. So first of all, this is women's, we just had International Women's Day, which is on March 8th. We just kicked that off. And in the United States, the whole month of March has been declared Women's Month. And there has been this global reset that has hit the whole entire world with COVID. And I, for one, have felt a profound honor and privilege to watch humanity come back to heart. And that's what I felt like I've been witnessing the last year. What I've also seen is that the patriarchal society that we've been accustomed to for several hundred years has gotten us this far, and our amazing men, we've actually demanded that out of them. We've demanded them to be strong and to pull us through. And now I feel like it's time for women to authorize themselves for the next chapter and ushering the next chapter, and for us to gift the world and to show men that, collaboration is a much more effective way of going forward. And part of that is in how we look at gender-based violence, and in how we look at, as well as, sexual trauma, and where that's rooted, and where do those come from, and the conversations behind those. So I also want to take a look at, and if we have any questions that we can take, is as far as what is your personal experience that you're willing to share, Jamie Lynn, and thank you, Anasuya, for joining us. And let's start with that question.
So my personal experience.
My joy. Total.
Sorry about that. Go ahead. That's okay. So my personal experience began when I was about 7 years old with a phone call. My uncle demanding my mom's forgiveness for what he had done to her over a span of 18 years. And then she wanted to adopt a son. And so as soon as she adopted my cousin, the sexual abuse started from there. And it progressed over 8 years with 5 different offenders, basically. Not all of them went to jail, but I did, at the age of 15, feel the drive and the fear that comes with it to come out and share my story with the world. And it was my counselor in high school who I first went to. And then, of course, you have to go through the whole court process and write down all of your information. I'm sitting there being like, how do I timestamp and all these events. They wanted every single event. What I discovered throughout the process of court was the word victim was thrown around a lot. And I honestly believe that it hurt me more to hear it from the outside world than it was to experience being victimized at that point. And I lived this idea of being victim so harshly that I caused myself to be re-victimized a couple of times. So being fed up with all of that, I reached out for support. I took programs. I brought people into my life that were not my normal people into my life to really just be able to stand up and have a grasp on who I was. So I not only had to find myself as a victim, right, of sexual abuse, but I also had to find myself as a woman and as a person, and even get through conversations of like, oh, you're a woman, you can't do X, or oh, you can't spell, so don't bother becoming a writer. And here I am, you know, a 5-time best-selling international author. So I have surpassed so many things that I thought to myself that could never happen. I was told that was could never happen. And I think when you take your traumas and you are just in such a bold face with them and say, you know what, I'm not going to let you tell me how to run my life, and you do the process and you do the work, I believe I'm a better person for it, and I can make that much more of a difference. I know it probably over exaggerated the question, but I wanted to like get all the cool stuff in there. So.
Thank you so much. And thanks for just your honesty and your rawness with that. And thank you for being up here on the panel. So Anasuya, we want to bring you in. Just introduce yourself and talk about your relationship with Amplify Voices, how you came to know about it, and why it is that you're passionate about this topic.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Anasuya, and I was introduced to Amplify Voices from Deb Shapiro, the creator of this format and this program, through DebX, which is another program that she's created for people to share their stories and their journeys. And this is where this is a stage that the three of us, Jamie Lynn and I, sharing our story. And the story that I shared was a story about the time when I was raped as a young lady. Oh, did I say young lady? As a young girl, by an absolute stranger. And because I had shared that story on the DebX stage, I decided to be a coach. I relate to them and their experience. And
Are you guys hearing her? No. Okay, Anasuya, we lost you.
I can't believe it. What?
There we
What?
go.
Can you hear me?
We can now.
Okay, take two. Okay, hello everybody. Name's Anasuya, and I am so thrilled to be a part of Amplify Voices, because these women have gained my heart and soul over the 3 months of coaching that we've been offering them to get them ready to share their soul, share their heart, and to share their journey of overcoming such immense tragedies, actually. And these beautiful, powerful, resilient women that you will see on the stage this Saturday will blow you away. Their stories are phenomenal. It's been such an honor to be with them over the months, to watch them go from a little tiny seed to these beautiful, blossomed, gardens, not just a flower, gardens. They're just phenomenal. And I had the honor of being with them during this journey because I did a program called DebX, which is a program similar to what these women are going through. And I shared about being a survivor and overcomer of rape myself. So I know what it's like to have to craft an 8-minute story about such a traumatic event and share the overcoming. And it was such a great to be there for these women, these 7 amazing women during their journey of reshaping. So it's an honor to be here and to put a spotlight on what's coming this Saturday. You got to be there. This is a place you will want to be. You have your heart blown wide open to the miracles that are possible in our lives. So you may not have been raped or had any sexual abuse by a relative or a stranger in your life, like I did, like we did. But it doesn't matter. You have some place where you have been abused. You have some place in your life where you have had something stolen from you, taken from you, stripped from you without your permission. You have had an experience very similar of nature where you were robbed and left empty and void and with no self-esteem, with left with doubting yourself, not believing in yourself, believing you're not worthy of anything. I know for me, I was left with feeling damaged goods. For many years of my life, I just felt damaged and who would want me? And I don't mean romantically only, I just meant in everything. So whatever area where you have had that kind of experience, these women will bless you because you will see the parallel in your life. You will hear the blessing in your life. You will see a way out of no way for your life. And that is the power of these stories, is that it's universal. It's not exclusively for people who have been sex trafficked or sexually abused. It's for overcoming something that you think you cannot overcome, that you believe it's too bad, it's too horrible. I'll never get over this. I'll be living with these scars for the rest of my life. These stories will show you that you can even heal those scars. So I really invite you to be there on Saturday at 3 p.m. Pacific Daylight Standard Time, virtually or live in Scottsdale, Arizona, to be blessed by these women because they will bless you.
Thank you so much for that. All right, so all of us have had our journey and we've all had a piece of it. So let me talk. So I get to host this, and so thank you so much. And I'm hoping we're having to join over. And I know we lost a few people that wanted to make this event. So we'll make this available as a recording onto that link afterwards. So I just want to thank you guys for being patient, and I apologize for the technical difficulties, and we weren't not able to host it on Facebook Live as we wished. So my name is Sophia Levis, and I also got to be one of Deb Shapiro, who is the founder of Amplified Voices. Through her DebX program, I was with Jamie Lynn for her first premier program, and that was taking amateur speakers and getting them on stage to do a TEDx-like conversation talk in front of about 600 people. So for me, I have had the profound privilege of working with Jamie Lynn and Arise Empowered, and in dealing with the Summit of Breakthrough and Thrive, which is dealing with thriving after sexual trauma. And it hit home for me, having had those experiences in my past. And there were things that I had dealt with through 30 years ago in therapy, and I don't even really recall, had really called a lot of those events until Jamie and I started working together, and I started to uncover some of those. And I'd realized I'd never outside of therapy shared that with anybody. And so that set me on a whole new path and journey of introspection and healing for myself. And it also gave me a new relatedness, because at the time, this was like quite a few years back, this was at least 4 years back, the Me Too movement was just starting. And I was hearing stories about women that were coming forward 15, 20 years later and saying that they just remembered and just recalled. And at that time, I was thinking, how do you just forget something that obviously was such a violation? and like forget it for 15, 20 years and then all of a sudden come at it. And now the statute of limitations for the law for legal recourse is now expired. And how does that happen? And then when I did the work with Jamie Lynn and uncovered my own stuff, I'm like, that's how it happens. You know, you move through it, you move on for it at best, and at worst, you accept it as part of being a woman. And you're like, oh, that happened to me, but like that stuff happens. Like guys always grab my ass as I'm walking in a club, you know, like that's acceptable. That's to be expected, not acceptable, but to be expected. And I started looking at that journey of like this societal behaviors that are expected and tolerated and thus cultivated and encouraged because of the toleration and the expectation of them. And so I started digging further and looking at where my journey kind of diverged and where I had like this break in like remembering. And it was like when I went to go tell people, I was made to be the one that was at fault. And many times it sounds like this. Well, what was she wearing? You know, it comes at it from different angles and the onus gets put on the woman. Now, sexual abuse, sex trafficking happens in both genders. And I want to make sure that I'm very clear about that it is all genders that it occurs with. I can only speak from the women's perspective just because that's my experience. And that's what I, hold on one second, we just got to mute some people. All right, there we go. So I can only come from that perspective and that knowing of being a woman and what it is that I experience. And so that's some other things and thoughts that came to my mind is also, there was a different recollection from the people involved. When I stated my part of the story, it was very much dismissed and that I was making up things. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways and there was numerous events. So it wasn't just a one-time event with one person. There were many different events when I think back of what occurred. And I started to feel like, well, okay, well, all these people can't be wrong, right? Like you start to go and think about, I started to go and think, well, like all these people, they don't even know each other. And they're all saying that, you know, that didn't happen. So maybe I know I have a wild imagination. I mean, that's why I'm a badass CEO, because I have that imagination and that creativity. But I'm like, you know, I felt this, I experienced this. And so it's that rectifying, it's that cognitive dissonance that I've experienced and traversed through. And it's in that relating to these women that started to come out and still are coming out with the Me Too movement and really honoring their story and really getting that there was something that they experienced and something that was deeply felt and injured and touched their soul. And how is it that we move forward powerfully and heal ourselves? Because I believe that that's one of the first steps is in healing ourselves, that's our gift to the world. And how do we move forward and usher in a new conversation going forward, one that is of profound respect and in dealing with collaboration. And I think that's one of the ways that I feel like going forward, when you move from competition to collaboration and from a paternalistic society to a patriarch society to a matriarch society, I think that is a shift that could spark this and could spark the tipping point and give us a different outcome. So I'd just like to hear from any of our guests or any of our speakers, any thoughts on any of that?
So I can only speak, again, like I'm a woman, so I don't have the full perspective of the abuse that comes on to a male, but I can speak of it only because one of my offenders was already on my Breakthrough and Thrive Summit, which I do twice a year. And he was incarcerated for 12 years because he confessed, and he was like, yeah, this is what happened. So then he got he served his time. And he came on in the Breakthrough in Thrive Summit and shared that initially, you know, when you're going through prison, you're sending your life away. So you have to sign your name a lot. Like you're like, yes, I'm here. And he expressed that he hated looking at his name because of the pain that he had caused. Now, this was at the end of everything. But when it started, he was only like 7 years old and had no idea that he was being sexually abused. He thought, as a boy, I'm getting lucky. I got 2 older girls after me. And they basically taught him what to do. And after a few years of thinking that these girls were just all about him, one approached and said, well, we don't need you anymore. I mean, can you imagine a 10-year-old's heart breaking? Like, he's just such a little boy and working hard to get affection from people like any other child, and here his heart breaks. So he goes into basically a 2-year depression. Nobody knew what was wrong with him. Nobody understood why he changed. Luckily, he didn't do gangs and drugs and things until later. As an adult, he did. And when I came into the picture for him, in his position, he didn't understand that it wasn't anything other than a connection or something that felt good. Now, for some of my other offenders, they were doing what was done to them in sort of like a controlled way. So they had to figure it out, and I would happen to be their experiment. Their father also, if you guys remember the stories about priests and the altar boys, yes, hurt people, definitely. So in this case, my uncle never had the opportunity, because guys don't get raped, right? Like, to not imagine us as women to not be able to express that, but even more so for a guy, I think it hurts to the point where he doesn't even know what to do with it. So he grows up and gets married and he has these boys and he doesn't know what to do with his anger. So he drinks it away or he takes it out on them in some form. And he ended up passing on, but just the pain and the repercussion of the pain of not being able to speak about the pain, because you have to have this, I am a man, you know, I cannot speak this. So in that sense, I'm very humbled and grateful for any man who comes forth and can share their experience so that we can better understand. And
Yes.
I think
Yes.
I'm good with that.
Nikki, I know you're kind of walking around, but I think you had something to say or a question.
Yeah, Nikki, stay still. And so let me introduce her first. Okay, so I invited Nikki to be a part of this conversation. One, because I love her and I know her from a long time ago. And we've shared the stage sharing our stories before. But I invited her mainly because she is one of the 7 women who will bless us this weekend on the Amplify stage. So welcome, 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 Nikki.
Okay, hello. Well, is there something you guys would like me to speak directly to, or, you know, do you just want me to share from the experience?
Yeah, so first, just kind of create for everybody, for all our listeners, who you are and why you decided to participate with Amplified Voices this weekend.
Okay, so my name is Nikki, and I'm the founder of Joan of Heart Enterprises, 90 Days to the Heart of the Matter. I decided to participate in Amplified Voices because I was tired of being silent. It was time. I was seeing everywhere the pain that is surrounding us, basically. And I recently lost my wife. And during that process, in that first year, I was able to sit with it, be with it, and I was looking at what's next for me, because I'm always looking at moving forward, and I had always thought about creating something powerful. And Deb had spoken about DebX, and I told her I wanted to share with her, and I wasn't ready at the time. And of course, all the dominoes fell together at the right time, at the right place. And here we are. She had a call with one person and said, "Oh, I'm going to do this thing with Amplified Voices," or it was just this little spark. And lo and behold, 2 days later, I call her because she had the conversation, had a question, how am I going to start this? And then I call and I say, guess what? I'm ready. It's time now. I'm done being silent. It's time to step out, step on that ledge and jump off. And here we are right now. And it has been, whoa, what an experience. Incredible, exciting, emotional. And that's, I think the best way I can describe it is that breath. Words are not sufficient to express everything that is so powerful and impactful at this moment. And I feel it an honor and a privilege to be here and to share. And if I can make one difference with one person, male or female, I am doing it. And that's why I'm here. Because if someone does not have to live in the shame and the silence and the, oh my God, I'm not good enough stuff anymore, then I'm all in.
I got it. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right, so the question that I want to bring to our guests, our panelists, everybody that's here right now is what do you feel can transform this societal conversation that we're having, this sexual trauma, these events that are being brought up from the Me Too movement? What do you think that we can do to move forward with this? Go ahead, Jamie Lynn.
On that also on what you can you hear me?
I'll let her go if she can be
Can you
heard.
hear me?
Let her go.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, go ahead,
Hello?
Anasuya. We can hear you.
Yay, okay. Technology, I swear. So I first want to talk to you about memory loss and how does that happen? Because that is part of the big part of the attack on the Me Too movement, and attack on women and boys sharing this story when they have had such a big gap. That is something that happened to me. I was abused for a few years by my uncle, and then I was raped by a stranger. Both of those memories of those events I suppressed. I remembered them 25 years later. It took me leaving the country, going across the ocean to another country, another culture, another language, to feel safe enough to open up that cave. And when these memories came back, they came to me in dreams, so I thought they were dreams. I did not even remember that they were real. It wasn't until they came back to me the third or fourth time that it became a memory. And I said, just like those people said, how could you forget something so traumatic? Well, let me tell you how. The key word in the question is traumatic. Trauma is easily buried when it is too fucking much. Excuse my English. When it's too much for a soul to handle, the body instinctively protects itself by silencing or erasing, well, not erasing clearly, burying something that will re-trigger it and re-trigger it and re-trigger it and re-trigger it. And I am thankful that I didn't have to live the rest of my childhood and teenage years and early adulthood with those memories. I was able to remember them at 24 when I was safe, when I was far away from the perpetrators, when I was far away from the people who didn't believe me, when I was far away from the environment that caused it, when I was far away from all of that and was literally safe in every way, shape, and form. Then I could address it and get healing for it and see a counselor for it and work it out. But it took that kind of time and distance for me to feel safe to look at it. Everyone has a different environment that is there for them to handle their memories. And that was my journey. So that is very real, having your memory suppressed for your own sanity's sake. For real. Now, what is the way forward? That is such a great question. I really know fundamentally, as you wrote, hurt people hurt. So I know that the two people involved in my abuse were hurt people, very, very hurt people. I was able to testify even at a young age and put my rapist in jail. And so I have the satisfaction of that most women don't have. They don't have that kind of closure and completion. And I pray for them, knowing that they weren't able to do that for whatever reason. I feel very blessed to have that kind of completion. And I had completion with my uncle as an adult. I was able to go and demand he make amends with me. Since I knew he was in his 12-step program, I said, look, you skipped a step if you didn't talk to me. You need to come make things right with me. When I look back at it, I can't even believe I had the fortitude to do that, but it was a day of reckoning that had been overdue, but I did it when I could handle his response. If he said no, I knew it wouldn't break me. He said if he denied it, I knew it wouldn't break me. If he wanted to do something damaging to me because I called him out on it, I knew I could handle it. And I was amazed that he handled it beautifully. Just completely clean and took responsibility for it. That's also a blessing that I have, that most people don't get to have, and I recognize that. But I had to hear how he had been hurt, how it happened to him, and I'm like, oh, whoa, this is my family you're talking about, what? So I think the way forward is listening to people's stories and hearing them, because what doesn't come out in one way will come out in another way. If we don't find positive ways for people to express their hurt and pain, there it will come out in a negative way, or what we call negative or damaging, destructive way, because it has to come out. It has to come out. People are experiencing not being seen and heard. People are experiencing not being valued or cherished. People are experiencing all levels of invisibility in a world of 7 billion people. Most of us living on top of each other, except for the people lucky enough on farms and acres away. Most of us are on top of each other, but yet we all feel invisible. That is something we can do something about. Because if we get to know people, if we look for connection, if we intend on having coffee with someone or tea or milk or jello or whatever, to hear people's stories, we can support each other and being seen and heard, because that is our access point. People may not share with you in the first 3 months they know you, or even 3 years, that they were sexually abused, but that experience of being seen and heard for what they do share gives them a peace, gives them a settling in their soul, where they may be very unsettled, where they may be very hurt. We can help close their broken heart another way. It doesn't have to be over sexual abuse, but we can heal their hearts, because hearts are broken in many ways by many people over many, many years. We can help them where they are right
Some great
now.
points. Thank you. I once had a mentor tell me that you don't get to say what a victim felt. Like, they tell you what they experience, and then you deal with that. And you brought up some really, and that's how you validate somebody. It's not about who's right, who's wrong, what happened, what didn't happen. When someone tells you this happened to me, it's about, okay, this is what you have that happened to you, and making sure that we come from that space, so there, and work from that sense, and and work with that and look at that. And that's one thing, you're right. The first thing is that, and then Jamie Lynn mentioned it, and I've mentioned it, like when we first came out, we were very young when different things happened to us. And when I first came to adults, it was like, what did you do, to cause that? And I mean, even as I got older, and there was one that happened not, older, it was still about me and what I did. And then when I shared that there was more than one incident, oh, you're the common factor. So now I'm bad and wrong because multiple things have happened to me with multiple people. Now it's really my fault. So those accusations and that listening coming from, what did you do to deserve that? Those type of conversations are the conversations that, if they were to be transformed, would tip this. That would be the tipping point. So Jamie Lynn, thank you so much for that, Anasuya. Jamie Lynn, what do you believe we could do to move forward powerfully?
I really honestly think the first step is to become aware that it's happened to you, some form of abuse, some form of something being taken from you. You become aware of that and you become connected with it. And then having a willingness to look and see, like, where the responsibility lies. Is it actually my responsibility or was it someone else's responsibility? I had to learn to take those two and separate them, because before the age of 18, I was not responsible. Like, the brain wasn't developed for that. Anything that I did after speaking what happened to me, and after the age of 18, all of those things were then my responsibility. So I had to get comfortable with looking at those things and then give myself a ton of love and compassion, a ton. And like, I mean, even earlier, I was digging in some deep stuff and I had this call with Sophia and she goes, "You're amazing." And I'm like, "I don't think so." And she's like, "Too bad, you're amazing anyway." But like, I was resistant to that for so long that to hear "I love you" was like, no, I'll say it to you first. And another conversation I had, which was very interesting, was I had to be the one to be sexually in charge, because if I wasn't, then something might hurt. So learning to recognize the conversations and just throwing in a ton of love and compassion for yourself, because once you love yourself, it is so much easier to love another person. Then there's space for forgiveness. If you can't love yourself, don't even talk about forgiveness yet, because you're just not ready. And know that you're not ready, and it's okay that you're not ready. And the other aspect is forgiveness isn't for the person who caused the harm. I know we always think like, oh, forgive them, like, but if the power lies over here with me, the forgiveness is then for me. And Rob, my offender, my amazing offender I talked about earlier, who was on Breakthrough and Thrive Summit, he has this quote from Buddha, I believe, and it's about holding hot rock or hot ash in your hand, and that's anger, expecting that you're going to throw it at somebody else. But who's the one who actually gets burned in that? So when we talk about forgiveness that way, a lot of times we're going to notice that in our shoulders, or we're going to feel our throat tighten up because we can't say it, or we're going to have these migraines. And so just allowing yourself to go, okay, that's there. I'm not ready yet. And you don't have to talk to the person. You don't have to write them a letter. You don't have to tell them that you've forgiven them. You just simply, I forgive you. And sometimes you have to start with, I forgive you as in yourself for harboring this or for any sort of guilt you might feel, because it's all, at this point, it's all an illusion. To really know that right here and right now is what you have, and you bring love into right here and right now, and know that all of those things were in the past. My greatest freedom was a different coaching call I had, and she goes, "Do you know that it's over?" Like, this just happened a couple weeks ago. She's like, "Do you know it's over?" I'm sitting here 20 years away from my whole ordeal with the starting of the court part, and I had not yet accepted that it was actually done. And I had to bring in so much compassion for that and let myself cry. And then I tried to tell my husband like this major breakthrough I had, and I couldn't tell because I was crying. And some people, they throw up, some people they sleep it off, some people they get sick, some people sneeze too much. Like whatever it is that you have to do to get it to release and to move forward, that's what you have to allow for yourself. But again, first it's awareness, and then it's willingness, and then you get to work. Don't forget about loving yourself.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I remember I was 24 years old. So I just want you guys to get a visualization of this. I was 24 years old. At that time, I was always the designated driver. I did not drink. In fact, like the smell of alcohol actually made me really sick. And so my girlfriends, I loved to dance. And my girlfriends, they would go to clubs and I'd always be the designated driver. I would drop them off. And then of course, I'm the last one to get home. So it's late at night and I'm in a very, cute little dance outfit. And so I'm 24 driving home by myself late at night. And this huge 18-wheeler next to me starts to come into my lane, and his, like, I can see him from where I'm driving, from my driver's seat, because he's staring right down at me. And I'm starting to feel really uncomfortable. Like this isn't just some type of like, oh, I'm in the wrong lane or I dozed off. This is like very intentional. And as women, I know you guys understand when somebody's looking at you, when somebody's watching you, you could just feel that. And I tried to speed up, I tried to slow down, and the 18-wheeler was matching me. And I was starting to get very nervous because at this time of the night, there was very, very few cars around me, even though I was in the middle of downtown Phoenix and it was just late at night and there was just nobody around me. And at the last minute, I remember that I was passing this exit where there was some type of like IHOPs, and there were always police officers there. It was a 24-hour IHOPs. And I remember every time I ever stopped there was always cops there. That must be where they, get their food or whatever. And so at the last minute, I like had to go off the dirt and stuff, but I made the turn at the last minute because I knew the 18-wheeler wouldn't, like, there's no way he can make that turn. Well, by golly, he made that turn as well. But I was able to pull because I got enough speed that I was able to pull into that parking lot of that restaurant. And I ran inside because I saw 2 cop cars, and I ran inside to this restaurant and I ran straight to the police officers who were of course eating. And I was like out of breath and scared out of my nuts. And I was watching the 18-wheeler. He couldn't necessarily make it in the parking lot because it was too small for his rig. And so I saw him like try to come in, and then he was like now having to maneuver out because he saw that he couldn't get in. And I was like screaming at the cops. I'm like, you need to go arrest that man. You need to go stop him right now before he gets away. And they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I mean, all they cared about is like calming me down when I'm like trying to get them to get this cop. And then when I finally got to tell them my story, the first thing they said, they looked at me and they go, what do you expect dressed like that? And that was the response I got from 2 police officers, from a 24-year-old girl that, had to go through that. So these are stories that I want people to hear, because these are things that, that happened quite over 20 years ago, and things that I've dealt with in the past, but these are things that are going on. These are things that are so subconsciously rooted in women that we don't even realize that when we park at night, we always have to park underneath a light because we know that we need to get in our car. I mean, how many of us walk out of a building with the keys in our fist because we've learned that's a weapon, or with the keys sticking out through our knuckles because it's a weapon? We always have to have a keys in our hands, right? When we go to the car. So you're not sitting there trying to fumble for it. The other thing is like, we never leave knives out. Like, how many of us in our kitchens, it's in our own home, but we don't leave knives out. You don't leave weapons that could be lying around for other people to use. I mean, there's so many things that are habitual for women that stem from this violence that we are exposed to, that occurs with us. So are there any experiences that you guys have had or anything that's habitual that you're like, oh yeah, I do that, and that's just ingrained in me?
I do the keys thing every time. A friend of mine, he lives in a like a U-shaped cul-de-sac for mobile homes. And I had to park in the guest parking, and there wasn't much light between where I had parked my car and where I was. And there was, and I think he was an old man. So I kind of felt bad when I figured out who it was, because I think I was introduced to him already. But he was walking and I got freaked. I put the keys in so that they were sticking out just like this. And I held onto those keys real hard, and I stayed on my side, and I picked up my pace, and he stopped and waited for me to pass him, because I believe he felt I was freaked out. And he just stayed there. He did not move a muscle until I got into the house.
And I want guys to hear this. This is so great. Thank you for sharing that, because I do want to, I want to make sure that we add ways for our amazing men out there to help us, and to help the women and help us heal. And those are certain things that when you notice that you might be, to be consciously aware of how close you're walking to a woman. You might be all in your head about trying to get to a meeting or whatever, but just give us space. And especially if you're behind us, or, just say, excuse me, miss, may I please pass you? And instead of walking behind us so that we feel like we're being chased or walked down upon. And that thing about walking women to a car, offer that to women. Yes, there's a lot of us women that are now jaded, and there might be women that are like their armor is on and they're like, I don't need to be walked, and just be with us when we're in those moments, and just be like, okay, got it. So would you like me to walk you to the car?
I had experience in a club. I didn't, first of all, I'm a country girl. Like, I grew up on 3 acres. I'm now about to own 34. So I am not a city girl. And my friend's like, come to Chicago, come to this club. The club is about the size of my 1-bedroom apartment. And I'm like, it is so small. This is not a club. This is a room. And I started to panic. And the guy that was with us didn't know me hardly at all. And he's like, are you okay? You look really pale all of a sudden. I'm like, I'm freaking out. He's like, well, it's okay. Why don't you just pretend you're my girlfriend for a little bit, and then, we'll tell our friend that we're out of here, and we'll get a taxi. And I was like, the color came back to my face. Another experience in Chicago, I was like, I got this. I'm all confident and everything. Got my keys out, even though I'm not going to my car. And my buddy comes out and he's like, you're not walking by yourself, are you? I was like, it's just 2 blocks away. I'm good. He's like, no, you're not walking by yourself. He's like, takes my arm and he walks me all the way back to my friend's place. That just brings out so much love, because it's like, I know we're not dating. I know you have no commitment to me, but you have, as a man, this honor and respect towards women that has me want to call your mama and say, good job. Like, thank you for raising such an amazing man. So
yes. And
please
you
do
have
that.
something to add to that?
Yes, and I thank you, Jamie Lynn, for helping me to remember. I've been blessed with real gentlemen in my life, real old school gentlemen who were my age. So they weren't old, they were just old school, as in raised properly, to respect women, to honor women, and to look out for women's safety. So I thank you for reminding me of that, because it's really important. And another thing men can do is, when they drive you home, even as a friend, if they drive you home, don't leave. Make sure they get in the door.
In the door.
And then don't leave. Call them. Are you in? Turn on the lights. Make sure no one's in there. Then I'll leave. Because people can be in your house when you don't know it. And I've just been blessed. And men taught me that. He said, okay, I said, I'm in. Okay, you can leave. He said, no. Turn on the lights. Look around. Anything out of place? Anything out? Anything look like somebody been in there? You sure? You sure you're the only one in there? Okay, then I'll go. And I said, I've never had someone take that length, but it made me feel so safe and so loved. And this was a friend. I said, thank you for showing me the kind of partnership I need in my health, in my sanity, and my safety. It's a blessing. So, making sure someone gets home, and even if you're not driving home, like I would invite every woman to have someone on the phone with them anyway. Like, have someone on the phone you go home with. Okay, I'm walking through my door. This is what I'm seeing. So, because these are crazy ass times. You just never know. And they've been crazy forever, just so you know. It just seems to be more heightened under the pandemic, that people are forgetting themselves. People are giving themselves permission to do heinous things. Beat up their wives, beat up their children, rape. I mean, things that they might not have done if they weren't 24/7 with these people. But people are giving themselves permission to lash out, to attack, and to be abusive. So we have to be vigilant. We have to look out for one another. We have to call one another. We have to check in and say, are you okay? Do you need anything? Are you dealing with anything? Are you being re-triggered by the environment that we're in? Because this environment we're in under the pandemic is re-triggering a lot of people. And they don't know what to do with those memories, those feelings. So we really do have to support one another and listen to your friends, listen to your neighbors, listen.
And I think, one thing, if there's one action that all of us can take, each one of us can take going forward, is take this time, this global reset, and do introspection. It's your absolute 100% responsibility to heal yourself. Like, that is your job in the world. Every one of us has that job, is to make sure that we heal ourselves and that we take a look at and grow within. When you do that, when you take responsibility for, what happened, who you're being, what you made it mean, and what you're going to do going forward. Like, if each of us were to do that, what would happen? Everything would shift overnight. Whole and complete people live differently. They make different choices. When you're whole and complete, when you are in love with yourself and in love with life, the last thing you're going to do is do something that's going to ruin that or disrupt that. Why would you do that? It's not going to come to play. So that's one thing that I think. And I want to now go forward, and as we wrap this up, and kind of just look at what is it, some steps that people can take going forward to, whether it's heal themselves, heal somebody that they know, or just move forward powerfully.
Well, I know for sure getting in some counseling would make the difference. There are many organizations offering free counseling, free coaching during the pandemic. Get it. If you can afford to pay someone, do that as well. But get someone dedicated to listening to you and hearing you in a way that would make the difference. Yes, friends can listen to you and do the best they can, but if they haven't experienced it, they may not be of service to you.
There you go. So get a professional help. There you go.
Professional help. It's available everywhere. Thanks to the pandemic. Yes. That's the best thing about the pandemic. That there is counseling online where you don't have to leave your pajamas or your bed or your covers and get help.
Show your face. It could be
you don't have to show your face, nothing. Just get the help.
And you hit an amazing
that's my
point.
best advice.
You hit an amazing point, Anasuya, is that mental health is probably more important, for sure, as important as physical health. This mental health check, you get a physical every year. You should be doing that more regularly with your mental health, especially during the pandemic and during isolation. And if you're in America, some of our little political upsets that we've been having, that's incredibly important. So that's a great. Thank you. Jamie Lynn, what about from you?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that. You want and extend on it an accountability partnership to say, I'm not doing so hot right now. Okay, well, find someone, especially, let's say you're in the search. Find someone that you actually connect with, that you have fun talking to, that you feel is really listening to you. If you don't have that connection, you're not going to get anywhere. It's not going to work for you. So you might have to shop around. You might have to say, you know what, therapist, I will hire you after 2 sessions. You might have to say that. They don't offer that, right? because you want to make sure that connection. And I'll tell you why. She was a brilliant woman. I'm not going to knock her in any way like that. But for me, there wasn't a very good connection with the very first therapist that I had, and then was court ordered to go see. So I didn't really want to be there to begin with. My mother just knew that I had to be, right? So I went in and I tested her. I was such a nasty little teenager. I was a cutter, and she was like, well, if you don't stop that, I'm going to have to put you into a mental institution. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't sound like a good idea. Don't really want to spend summer break locked up, right? And I got myself into a mental swirl, and I did it again, and I allowed it to be shown, and she did nothing. And I get what I was a child, but if I were an adult, I'm out of there. I can't trust you if you can't trust the person you're with. If you feel like you have to test them, don't talk to them. So what you want is someone who is going to say things like, I'm here for you, I'm actually listening to you, and then that you feel that energy and that exchange, and it's a flow. If you have to struggle, you're going to struggle with your own stuff anyway. So talking to them has to be easy about like mundane stuff at first. So I think that's huge. The other aspect of it is we're going to work on the mental. Now let's move to nutrition. We tend to like exercise, call my shrink, exercise. But what are you putting into your body? How much water are you taking in? How much sleep are you actually getting? Is it consistent? Eating a lot of fresh, raw, green vegetables and having that purified water. Get rid of that table salt and put on the Himalayan salt. All these things are going to start helping you feel better, so that when you do the talking and you do the exercise and you've got the food, you actually have a level of confidence that you probably didn't have before because you didn't have all three of these elements working together.
That's great. All right. So another thing that I wanted to also just kind of add to it is that in addition to your mental health and actually getting professional and having it be like, that's just like your physical checkup. Like Michael Jordan had a coach. He's like the all-time probably greatest basketball player ever. And he had a coach. Think of any A-lister that you could think of. They all have coaches. Somebody that's a professional for your mental health, it's the same thing. The same thing. It's just like, hey, let's see what's going on and getting it out of your head and out of your mouth and into, so you can see what's going on. Like getting the conscious, the unconscious, the subconscious, conscious. And so you can start to take a look and see what you're having in your mind. Like, what are you saying about things? Because in your mind, you can have these little conversations that go on that radio station that's always going on, especially for women. But it's once you get it out in words, then have you ever been talking and be like, whoa, I just said that. Like I did not, or, oh, I used my outside voice, right? Because that you just made something subconscious conscious, right? And that's what getting professional assistance, that's what it does, is brings the subconscious conscious. So that's great. And that's part of healing yourself. And that's part of your responsibility and your accountability. And Anasuya, what you said, it's just, there's so many great things. Is there anything more that you want to add to that, or what we can do to go forward?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Anything we can do that has us love ourselves, do it. So if it's chanting and meditating, do it. If it's journaling, do it. If it's writing poetry or doing something creative that brings you personally joy, do it. My greatest gift to myself, in addition to the things we stated, changing my diet, changing my mental diet, the conversations I'm having with myself diet, is cultivating a world of joy. Because one thing abuse robbed from me was my trust and joy. Joyous occasions, being happy was suspicious for me. That's some rewiring I had to do to make joy again, as opposed to joy as a threat. Because it was under happy occasions when the abuse would happen. So I'm learning to cultivate joy. So things that bring me joy, cultivate that, because that also helps me stay in balance, and it helps me remember the overcoming, that I'm creating a new life for myself. I don't have to keep being put back into the prison of the past, because when certain memories will bring me right back to 6 and 5 and 8. No. So as I cultivate joy, that's a forward thinking. That's something that plants a seed to grow forward. It brings me forward when I'm focused on joy, whether it's dancing, whether it's singing, whether it's writing poetry, whatever I can do to bring me joy is a gift to myself and to others. So a state of joy helps us stay in the present. And every time as long as we can stay in the present, we're free.
It's fantastic. So thank you for that. So for any gentlemen that are out there listening, and you heard some of our stories about what we deal with as women, because once again, we can only come from those, from that perspective of being a woman. I would like to invite you to really get into the world of what it means to be a woman, and how from birth, like we're raised in this society, and then you add a minority to it, and you've got a whole nother level that comes at it from that end. And I just invite you to look at different ways and opportunities you can create for the number one tip that I'm about to give you. And this tip, I'm hoping that you will use your powers for good, because this tip will work almost 100% of the time. The number one thing that women need, and this will pretty much get you anywhere or anything with a woman, if you will just do this one thing, is to make us feel safe. And if you will look for opportunities with the women around you and in your life, be that a significant other, a family member, or just a mere woman that's walking in your vicinity, if you notice a woman is looking uncomfortable or being surrounded by men or anything in that type of situation, if you can just have her feel safe, you start to heal the world. And that's how you make a difference, because the women are the ones that give birth to the future and shape the future, because they're mostly the ones that raise the children. So if we just look to making the women safe, whole, complete, respected, and good, we've just transformed all those challenges that we're having in humanity by just focusing on the women. So thank you so much for joining in, and thank you so much for our speakers and our guests that transferred over and followed us. And again, I'm so sorry for the technical. We just ask that this was in promotion of Amplify Voices, which is this Saturday, March 27th. It's live stream starting at 3 p.m. Pacific, which is 6 p.m. Eastern. The virtual live stream tickets can be purchased at amplifyvoices.org. That's A as in Adam, M as in Mary, P as in Paul, L-I, F as in Frank, Y, voices.org. Thank you so much.